Hello, Sam Giannotti here with another DM on the go. Today we will be talking about campaign ideas or campaigns that I've taken part in, or other kind of ideas like that. And I kind of want this, again, these videos are very informal. It's just me kind of giving my thoughts and opinions about things, or just talking about things that are on my mind. In the last episode, I said I would talk about, other campaigns that were planned for Behold a D&D podcast. So that's what this is going to be. But I'd love to start a conversation with you guys. So, reach out to us on any of the social medias down below, or comment down below with your own ideas for campaigns or campaigns that you've taken part in. And I'd love to hear from you guys. So, kind of starting this all off, I would like to talk about the campaign that kind of started Behold a D&D podcast, or the idea for a campaign that I thought I really enjoy. I still really enjoy. It's one campaign that I'm super passionate about, and I hope that in the future I'll get to play it with my players, and maybe even you. So, that campaign was a campaign titled Radical Irradiated Fighting Monsters. Now, as you could probably deduce from the name, it takes a lot of cues out from the kind of anthropomorphic animal-type creatures that are, existed in not existed in reality, but, were around in the late 80s, early 90s, those kinds of things, like street sharks, Martian motorcyclists from Mars. There was obviously Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have a comic book of it's titled Radioactive Adolescent Black Belt Hamsters. And then there's obviously, I think Ronin is one where he's like a rabbit. So I had created this campaign that kind of took a lot of themes. It was going to take place in the 90s, a very nondescript 90s kind of setting in New York City. And, it took a lot of cues from those kinds of shows and media, where the players would have a police board, essentially, or a bulletin board where they would have, different kinds of missions, or things that they've heard about, over the radio. They have a police scanner. They found there's missing persons that keeps happening near this one arcade, or there has been some reports of a noise disturbance coming from the sewers down in Manhattan or something like that. And there was just a number of different things that they would then get to choose, okay, well, we want to look into this right now. And so they would go. And based off of their choices, there was a branching storyline. It wasn't one giant campaign story. It was a number of stories all happening at the same time, coexisting at the same time. And so they would get to take place in these just crazy adventures that would just take them, in almost polar opposite directions, depending on the choices they made and, the kind of things that they did. So some of these settings that they could have take place in when they first started out, there was 3 settings that they had the ability to kind of take part in. That was a space adventure, a fantasy setting where, kind of a more classical, they would get sucked into this reality of fantasy where there's magic and all these other kinds of things. And then another setting where they would be, thrust into a kind of dystopian future. There was also, as part of the campaign, apocalyptic future that they could have taken place in, like a radioactive wasteland kind of storyline. They could go to the past. There was some dimensional adventures where they would go to these other dimensions, trying to bring balance to these different forces that were at play, as well as a kind of another space adventure, that was differential in the sense that, one, they were kind of like space explorers, where they would, have starship battles and do these kinds of things, and, would travel from area to area. And another one was more of a planetary one, where they would explore these different planets, both in space, obviously, but the groups and factions that they would be involved with were different. So that was one idea. Another idea was an idea for an all-cleric campaign with a name pending. I had heard the name for an all-clear campaign called the Amen, which I thought was a funny kind of pun. And that campaign kind of really stemmed from the fact that, if you look up the Cleric in 5e, and I challenge you, if you have not really delved into the Clerics in 5e and what they're capable of, you need to do it. Because they are super, super, super powerful. And a whole party just filled with clerics of all different domains and everything like that would have just been insane. Like, they would have been, obviously this is an exaggeration, but they would have been fighting a Tarrasque at, level 10. And just doing insane stuff. But with that said, there's other things like a Star Wars campaign, another kind of nondescript space campaign that was just, instead of a fantasy setting like the one our Legacy episodes take place in, it was a sci-fi setting. So those were a couple ideas or kinds of things that I had, bumping around. Obviously, the campaigns that we've chosen to do was a more classical fantasy one. That's what my players wanted first. And then when we went to restart up our podcast and kind of start a brand new campaign, the Star Wars campaign was the one that they chose then. So I'm interested to hear down below. Again, comment down below. Any ideas for campaigns that you've had, that you've thought have been interesting, things that you've heard about, or even campaigns that you've taken part in. So with that said, I have been Sam Gennady, your DM on the go, wishing you a wonderful night, morning, evening, whatever time it is where you are right now. Have a good one and keep on adventuring. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Like this video, subscribe to our channel so you can keep up to date. Follow us on all the social medias down below. And again, this has been me, Sam Gennady.